Commissioners. Just a bit of a recap myself. Kenneth Williams, City Manager, will be Chief Negotiator for the city, and we'll have two of the negotiations. Sheree Reed, our City Attorney, and Kayla Alban, our other third-party legal attorney. For years, Joe Tellez, again, hi Joe, Jeff Neeson and Cody Hinton. We're all here for sure. A bit of an overview. Last meeting, we adopted ground rules, and we got that done last time. And we had heard your presentation, and we were going to go back and look at it, and then come back with our discussion. And today, what we'd like to do is have the city's presentation to you. And then at the end of that, if you have questions or discussion, we're free to have it, or whatever else we determine we'd like to do. And then when that's over, we'll schedule another meeting before we leave here today. If that's acceptable, we'll proceed here in a second. Okay, we're gonna put our document on the screen. Things go to working properly here, and we will talk about it. We will get the presentation from Ms. Reed about the items on the screen, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Sorry, allergies. I promise I don't have COVID. Okay. Stephanie, if you can go ahead and distribute their copies, please. We went ahead and bait stamped it just because it's a lot of pages, and I figured it'd be easy if we had those page numbers be consistent and at the top. Off the top, when I was going through the contract, I noticed that there were a lot of grammatical and punctuational errors, but I did track those as well, so we can see those as well. Throughout the document, you'll see that some of the dates are highlighted. I didn't change them just so we can, because we haven't settled on dates, but I just highlighted them so we can know that those are something that would need to change. And then starting on page 5, the contract already uses the term collect parties in the contract. It just wasn't defined up at the top, so I added the word parties. Throughout, you'll see that parties replaces when it has the employer and the union together. Another big change is that it refers to the agreement. I just capitalized the A in agreement, and that's throughout the entire agreement. And instead of in the event, it's just if. It's just a cleaner language. The first major change would be that moving forward, any additional copies of the agreement will need to be through the open records request, and that's just to be consistent with our practices in the city. In section now 4, neuter was changed to neutral because I believe that that was the original intent of the language. And again, in Article 3, parties was used to replace where they were referring to the group as a collective. Assure wasn't changed to ensure, just because I felt like that was a better word. Workforce is actually supposed to be one word instead of two, so that was another change. In general provisions, bulletin boards were changed to union postings, and it also allows for the union to post any Bowman and Fire Rescue facility. And it shall be submitted to the fire chief. Another major change in the contract is where they were using employer and fire chief interchangeably, we clearly defined the role. So if it's a role that should be maintained by the city manager, it was changed to employer. If it's a role that's generally maintained by the fire chief, it was changed to fire chief instead of using those words interchangeably. Again, also in the contract, it refers to city in places where it should say employer. So any reference to the city was changed to employer since at the beginning of the contract, that's how they identified the terms. And again, copies of the agreement, future requests for this agreement shall be treated as open records. Just one correction. In that previous statement, this language, employees in the contract, it refers to firefighters as firefighters, employees, and members of the bargaining unit. We added this language so that it was clear that this contract applies to any individual subject to the terms herein, so any member of the fire department, regardless of their rank or their membership status in the union. So the union is still the sole bargaining unit for any individual, regardless if they choose to be a part of the union or not. I think I missed that one the last time. And then so back to I think I was here. Union postings. It allows for any posting in any Beaumont Fire and Rescue facility with the approval by the fire chief. Union business was clarified to include, instead of immediately after, we put in 1 day after the election so that the chief can have that updated list and any changes to union staff. Also included language to say any individual not properly identified in the list shall not be approved for time off for union business. In this one, it said unit employee, and there was a lot of times in the contract where it says unit. I'm assuming that it means union, so we replaced that to member of the bargaining unit. And we also included that employees are required to complete the necessary forms and return to work as indicated on the form. There was some discussion as to whether or not the form should be attached to the contract, and so I guess that's up to discussion later. Another change where it uses both the employer and the union, change to parties. In Section 5 is a bigger change where we're seeing internal and regular business, just defining those roles better. This includes but not limited to regular and special union meetings, meetings with attorneys, arbitration preparation, arbitrations, court hearings, or trials, and any union business not specifically stated in Section 2 of this article. It also goes on to say, and this is a change to Section 6, it just ratifies something that's been previously mentioned, that no more than 2 union officers or elected delegates shall be off. That's also mentioned in Section 4 as well. And again, some cleanup language. Permission is generally given by the fire chief and not the city manager, so we changed that from employer to fire chief, again, just clarifying those roles. Same thing in seniority and promotions. A major change in Section 3 is that we're going from 1 assistant chief to 2. Added the language that they are entitled to all contractual benefits because they are still civil service. And the lockout provision, again, replacing city with employer and making some grammatical changes or punctuational changes there. Maintenance and standards, there was a correction, lawful to lawfully, and then we defined what a benefit is. A benefit is defined as anything expressly stated in this agreement. Teens is obviously an error, so it was changed to terms and condition. And again, parties in Section 2. And then we added the following language: nothing in this section shall be construed to limit the employer's ability to change and implement new policies. The union acknowledges and agrees that the creation or drafting of department policies can be assigned to an employee or employees, and such action shall not constitute an act of bargaining. In this article, we actually took away health and safety and just called it department committees because we're proposing an additional committee, and we just wanted cleaner language for that. So there was not a big change in the safety committee other than we're saying that it has to be chaired by an assistant chief, that things will be jointly considered. Again, that's just some cleanup language there. Provided with a copy, considered. It's just regular language. No major changes. The biggest change I would say is that we added that the physical exam will also include a drug screening, but that's available to all employees under the city's policy, which means that any employee that's exhibiting signs of intoxication can be tested under the city's policy. Currently, the fire chief has the ability to do it under reasonable suspicion, or any supervisor in the department, captain, district chief, deputy chief can request that happens. This is just now formally under the policy. Another big change is we're adding the operational guidelines committee. This, I believe, is something that was talked about in one of the meetings between President Neeson, the fire chief, and the city manager. But the union and the fire chief shall select 3 members to serve on the Operational Guidelines Committee. An assistant chief or his designee shall serve as the chair of the committee and not be included as the fire chief's appointed member. So that means that he is a separate individual appointee as a chair, and there'll still be 3 equal members from both sides. The committee shall meet as regularly necessary to review and discuss new policies and policy changes and provide feedback to the fire chief. The fire chief shall have final approval over all policies. Recommendations not accepted by the fire chief shall not be subject to grievances unless they violate a stated benefit defined in this agreement. The sick leave policy, we took out union just because it's just any member of that employee's family, regardless if they're in the union, would still be entitled to the sick leave policy, just for clarification on that. Bereavement leave, there was some cleanup language. Stepchildren isn't hyphenated. One of the major changes under vacations is now employees shall be paid. Just cleaned up the 1/2. It doesn't need to be hyphenated, but there is a change that individuals are now required to take leave at the beginning or the end of their shift in 1/2 blocks. And again, under personal leave, it would identify them as members of the bargaining unit. We changed that to just employees in general. Under dues, no major change there other than it says employees of the union, and it should say employees in the union. That was just a typo correction. Under pension, those 2 categories, we just took out all the extra language, so it'll just say the regular contribution, the city's at 20%, and the employees are at 18%. So all the additional increases that were a part of the previous contract were just eliminated, and there are no other changes there. Under the educational, it was changed from members of the bargaining unit to employees and just clarified the dollar amounts. Under certification pay, the first section, there was the biggest change that we added. It says as recognized by the Texas Commission on Fire and Law Enforcement for those certifications. And then we added certification, the individuals that are eligible for community risk reduction division should have their TCOL certification pay. And then section 2, credential pay for individuals who are credentialed through the medical directors program. And I think the department lists them as E2, E3, and P1, 75, 100, and 125 per month respectively, with them being paid at the highest level. Under incentive pay, we also included that the chief shall have the right to eliminate or create teams with the city manager's approval. We removed section 2 because it's now mentioned in certification pay, so it doesn't need to be mentioned here in incentive pay. And then there was a typo in that section 2 is after approving proficiency, not for approving. So after they prove to be proficient in Spanish, Vietnamese, and American Sign Language, they'll qualify for those benefits. Again, in the clothing article, we just changed out bargaining unit and it's just any employees of the. Under mileage, we took out section 1 and just now all car allowances are in accordance with the city's policy, so there's no longer a requirement to transfer between stations. Under hours and overtime pay, we removed the additional effectiveness under the old contract, so now it's just that the rate is $250 per month with no proposed increases. Under division, community division, the language was added that it'd be a 1-hour break, changing the work schedule from 7 a.m. to 6 o'clock with a 1-hour break, with one working Monday through Thursday and the other working Friday to Monday, and the fire chief shall have final authority over the assignment schedule. Under callback, again, just cleaning up language, no major times. Under industrial fires, we removed the operational dive team because that's now under incentive pay. And we just clarified that it's anything outside the city limits. specifically. Under temporary promotions, we included that to be an employee, not just a firefighter. Also added the language that double upgrades are not permitted in operations. Also added the language that upgrades shall be mandatory and cannot be turned down, and that after 8 a.m., changes to the schedule that impact temporary promotions shall be in accordance with the efficiency and operations within the department and at the discretion of the deputy chief. Under that, the next article, just clarifying entry level as a hyphenated word as opposed to 2 words. The next section, we added emergency management representatives to to get standby or callback pay. Excuse me. Under wages, we changed the city to employer, again, just for clarity in the contract. And then under insurance, instead of times with an S, it's just time. There's really no major changes in this section other than for cleanups and misspelling. Rats was changed to rates. Again, just misspellings. His or her to their. Mostly just grammatical and punctuation errors. Under grievance, this next grievance procedure, the biggest change is that the dates were all changed to reflect 10 business days as opposed to the staggered days of 15/7 calendar days. Now all the dates are consistent, so it's all 10 business days. And again, instead of it using an aggrieved member, because anybody can file a grievance regardless if they're part of the union, we just said an aggrieved employee for clarity. And then secondly, added the word service because throughout the contract, it referred to them as service. So now that's just for legalese and contract language, but not a major change to the contract at all. In the completion clause, where they refer to the parties, the union and the employee was changed to parties, and of course, we capitalized the A in agreement. Some other capitalization and punctuation errors were corrected. Same thing in negotiation commits teen to term. The biggest change is that the union agrees that a written proposal for increase in monetary compensation of any kind shall be submitted to the employer no later than June 1st. I plugged in the 2028 date because that was the proposal that the union supported last time. So if we adopted a contract in 2024 at a 4-year agreement, then 2028 would be the date, but obviously subject to change. And the duration of the agreement, the dates are just highlighted so that we know to go back and change those as well. The next big change would be in the wage table. As I mentioned previously, the assistant chief was not a part of the wage table, and that created some concern as to how and why they were not receiving contractual, or he was not receiving contractual increases. So that's been added to the wage table to reflect the contract, an article under wages where it says that he should receive those benefits. The next one is not a part of this. We didn't add this, but this is the city's wage proposal. The city is proposing 16% divided over 4 years with a minimum of 2% allocated to the pension and no more than 4% combined allocated in any year. So for ways of an example, that would be 3%. If 3% was allocated to wages in 1 year, the maximum contribution to the pension would either be 1% or 0. And if they did 2% allocated to the pension, then the maximum contribution to wages would be 2% or 0. Okay, so that concludes our presentation. We can, I guess, entertain questions or at this time.
Is that 30 minutes or 15? Caucus, 30. Okay, 30 minutes. We'll reconvene at 1:52.
Before we go, do we have a special room that our bargaining team can caucus in?
We can find your place. We'll get your place.
Okay, thank you.
2:01 p.m.
Excellent. Is there a Word document that we could work off of? Or do we have to create our own?
I can send you a clean copy of the
Can you?
draft I have, or I can send you the draft with my edits, whichever one you prefer.
Could you do both,
Yeah, I can do that.
please? Okay.
Not right now.
We're gonna need some time to go over it. Half an hour wasn't enough time to look through all the proposed changes and edits, so I guess we can schedule some more dates.
Okay, that sounds fair enough to me, Joe. I don't know if we've looked at any tentative dates already or not.
Okay?
A lot would depend on your schedule, of course, but
That's true.
about how much time do you think? You need a couple of weeks or?
Yeah, at the most. Are we looking for that first week in November? After the 5th? The 5th is election day.
Oh,
Are we scheduling one day at a time, or is there an opportunity to schedule multiple dates? Or is that something you're gonna have to look at?
I think we can look at both.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Just in case they come back with something crazy, we don't have time.
The 6th. How about for the first one, the afternoon of November 6th, about 1 p.m.?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
November 6th,
okay.
1 p.m.
Yes.
Will that work with you? Cody? Does that work with you, Jeff?
Confirm that we can still, that this room is still available.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll text you. Okay. Are you looking at the week of the 11th as the next meeting opportunity? Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I'm saying
After the 6th,
the week of the 11th.
maybe the 13th, another Wednesday. That's not good.
Stay right there, Steph.
I'm in San Antonio the 13th and 14th. For work. The 11th, that's Veterans Day. I don't know if,
Yeah,
is that a city holiday?
yes. 12th,
The 12th?
that'll allow you to travel, okay, 12th.
I think so.
And do the morning of the 12th.
The 12th works here.
Do we start early or afternoon?
We can start that morning
Okay.
at 9.
9? Yes, sir. That'll work.
So we have the 6th at 1 and November 12th at 9.
Okay.
Those days work for you?
That work for you guys? Yes. Okay. Sorry.
Check it with her. Okay, so look like according to everyone's schedule, November 6th at 1 p.m. and November 13th at 9 a.m.
No, 12th.
12th, I'm sorry, 12th. Apologize. Okay,
That'll work.
okay. Well, if there's nothing else, anything else? Well, meeting stands adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.